you in general. Hey, Tom, nice to see you, my friend. I see we're live streaming. Now I'm going to get you in this Clubhouse room. Let's see.
We are live streaming. I'm just working on Club Deck to get myself in. So hang on one second. Oh, there we go. Now it popped up.
Just before Tom. I'm back. I got some bad
There we
feeds.
are. And did you, Dominic, you got your speakers muted on that side, right, bud?
Let's see here. I think I sound better. Go on here. Hey, Marcella, Michael, Tom, I think we're good to go here. Michael, how are you doing, my friend? Did we set it up right this week? Are you
You
seeing?
did. I sent you a little reminder note on Instagram, but you saw how the class gets listed and you press start. But as a sidebar, it only puts it on there like 15 minutes before. So if you checked a day before, you wouldn't see it under that start event button. But you figured it out. And now people that put on the notify button are showing up. Look at that. Within 2 minutes. Good work.
Hey, well, we appreciate the compliments and we appreciate you, one, coming in here when you do and dropping knowledge, sharing tips. Like last week, I screwed up. We just created a club. Me and Tom went weeks and weeks and weeks without having a club. And we were like, well, what's the point? And then Michael came on one day and said, well, the main point is it's an additional way to notify people that you have a room on a certain day. So we did start this club. It's not branded under my name or Tom's name or anything like that. Just a place where people can hang out and talk Clubhouse, podcasting, publishing, and social media. Tom, what do you got going on, my friend?
Oh man, so many things. I'm having a lot of fun. Playing with and creating content out of this live stream that we do every week. So if anybody's been following me on my different social media channels and Dom, who I've been tagging in a lot of these posts, because obviously this is a collaboration. He and I sort of host this forum, but really I think of it as a forum more than more than a presentation or anything like that. Our goal here is to create a space for people to ask questions and share their wisdom with a broader community. And so, yeah, I've just been having a lot of fun creating content out of this live stream, sharing that content around, trying to reach a broader audience, bring more people into the fold, so that we can create a bigger community of people that are supporting each other and pushing each other in a positive direction, right? Which I know is sort of near and dear to your heart, with your brand Motivation Champs. Positivity and motivation drives everything you do. And, I just want to get on that train. Who doesn't want to ride that ride, right? So that's what I'm doing, man.
Hey, man. Well, I'm thrilled to be on the motivational ride. I have this thought process of surrounding myself with people who inspire, people who lift up, people that are making a difference. And really, I was in the corporate world. I sold pharmaceuticals. I did business insurance for a decade. And I want to live in a world of difference makers, of positivity. And that's who I surround myself with every day. So coming in a room and hanging out with you and Michael and Marcella and people that just lift others' spirits, I'm all about it, man. So let's talk. Michael, thank you for being here, man. Introduce yourself and let's get you talking. I'm learning about British Columbia, one of the provinces. Is a province and a territory the same thing, Michael?
They are, yeah.
Okay,
They're like states, yes.
got it. So, what's up?
Hey, everybody. Good morning. My name is Michael Lozier. I live on an island on the west coast of Canada called Victoria, and the province is British Columbia. And I'm reminding Dominick about his Canadian geography. Let's see. This week, with all my podcasts, I have a podcast and I'm live on Facebook and live on LinkedIn, and then we upload it to a blog. But this week I called it like an audit. And I went to my Facebook entries and I made sure that the description was well done. Like it brought traffic to the website. I haven't done that for about a year. I just revisited the descriptions and the title. I went to my blog. I made sure that all the blog, below the video, that there was good marketing material there. And there was a couple of things that needed a tune-up. So it's one thing to get your material out there, but when you're posting it, I was just noticing that it needed a bit of a tune-up. So there you go. And
That's it.
again,
That Michael, that's a
oh,
good one with this tune-up, Tom. How often, Tom, do you ever go back and tune up? This, Michael, I started recently. I went back to my YouTube, so I've been on it for like 5 years, and I have a video. I probably have videos on there with 1 view and 14,000 views. But I went back and started realizing my titles were weak, my descriptions were weak, and so I went back and really started making it better. So you started on Facebook, Michael. Tom, have you ever done that?
I don't know that I've done a like a social media audit of any or sort of update of any kind, but I definitely have done that on my website. Just did that a couple of months ago. Gave my website a little refresh and a little update to better reflect kind of where my business is now versus where my business was when I made the website. Because that's one of the things that I think it's interesting. I had an email conversation about this the other day, and this is obviously a topic that we could spend the entire room just on this topic. But there seems to be in the business world, there's a huge amount of resistance to change, right? And the problem is that change is inevitable, and if your business isn't always constantly evolving and iterating and improving, then all you're doing is putting a time limit on the success of your business or your enterprise, right? You're like you're setting a timer and saying this is going to expire. This business is going to fail at some point because I am making the decision to not keep up with the ever-changing world that we live in. Um, so I think it's super important that you go back and you do a refresh and you audit, your channels, whether that's Facebook or Instagram or your website or whatever the case may be, LinkedIn. That you go back and you update and you make changes. And I do little tweaks here and there. I don't know that I've gone back and like audited content like you're talking about with your videos on YouTube or something like that, but like I definitely, make little tweaks and improvements and changes and, things that, and additions. Cause, as I grow as an entrepreneur, I'm adding things to the list, right? Like, so like on my LinkedIn profile, I have to go put speaker because I'm now at a stage in my career where I'm being paid to go speak places, which is weird to say out loud for me. Like it feels a little bit strange, but yeah, that's where I'm at. So I should put that on my LinkedIn profile because it more accurately describes me than what's there now. So
Hey,
that's what I think.
Tom, love what you're putting out and the updates you're making. Michael, what kind of updates have you added to, like when you added to the Facebook? Do you go other places, and what specifically are you adding?
right. Well, every Saturday I use Be Live software. It's BE.LIVE, and it allows you to put titles and so on your screen. And I go live in 3 places at the same time, 2 Facebook groups, so that's 4 places, plus LinkedIn and plus on YouTube. And right after I'm done my live show, it lasts about 29, 30 minutes. Right after that, my buddy takes the YouTube video and turns it into a podcast. So within an hour, my live video has gone to 4 places, 5 places with 0 edits. So that means no video edits. It's not polished. It's just, it is what it is, and that's authentic. And yeah, and that's what we do after that. Now, I will answer the question, when I first started coming on Clubhouse, people in my bio were talking about, hey, I noticed that you were interviewed by Oprah 4 times, and it's in my bio, but so I go to my computer and I got a picture of me with on the radio logo with all the other speakers, Dr. Oz and Maya, all of us were standing, not together, but in a poster. And after 12 years, I never posted that picture. So It's now on my LinkedIn profile, and it got more likes than the picture with my mother and I, because that always gets a lot of likes. So again, time to refresh and thinking, well, what do I want to make important on my profile on LinkedIn and so on. But so 2 points there. Maybe go through some old stuff and what can you pull out and update your profile with, and what can you do to be consistent every week? Last Saturday we were on episode 233. Divide that by 52 weeks in a year. It's a lot of years. And John, my buddy guy that does what I do, this is an emotion coach show. He's built his entire practice by being on this show a half hour once a week.
Mike,
So there, I hope somebody found a message in there or some tips or something useful.
absolutely, my man. And really, I would suggest everybody in this room follow Michael wherever he goes, and any of the speakers. Like Tom said, we're just facilitating a conversation here. So there's so much talent, so many experienced, knowledgeable people in this room each week. So connect with them, have a conversation, that virtual cup of coffee, and you will definitely receive a lot out of it. So, Tom, as always, let's move forward with what we do. What the roots of what we do here. So, this is Clubhouse. On this platform, in our room, we talk Clubhouse, podcasting, publishing, social media, storytelling. All these things are different ways to build your brand, tell your story through video, through books, through an app just like this, or the new apps coming out. So every week we meet lots of people share tips, they ask questions. So I don't believe I've met Marcella yet. And I want to, want to meet everybody else here. I see John Jay, my buddy, producer Jimmy, Charlie, Maura, George. Marcella, introduce yourself, ask a question, or drop a tip. The floor is yours.
So Dominick, we actually have met several times. We're following each other.
Oh, it's the change of the profile picture. I remember every profile picture.
Yep. Actually, I came in to support you and Michael because I consider Michael my friend. Michael has helped me quite a bit, and every time he's in a room, I take notes because he drops the gems, as people like to say. I think the one thing that I take away from any conversation with him is consistency. It's constantly renewing yourself and renewing, like he said earlier, look at everything and refresh it. But Michael has this way of being consistent about things. And that's the one thing that I am learning. So I do a podcast. We upload them twice a week. And it's to interview up and coming authors or authors who have not had a lot of traction. I'm trying to branch out and include publishers and authors that I admire. So I think one of the things that we're working on now is building our brand. And we've noticed that it's not just uploading, it's liking other podcasts and reaching out to them and saying, hey, I really liked your podcast, and, can you take a look at ours and let us know what you think. It's networking as well. So that's one of the things that I've been learning from other podcasters who have been around or who are seasoned. And that's basically it, I think. Like I said, I follow Michael around. He's fabulous. And I always tell everybody, if you don't know him, go follow him. And if you want me to make an introduction, I'll see if he's free, and I will introduce you. So that's it, Michael. I love you. I'm here to support. Thanks, Dominick.
Marcella, thank you for sharing that. And Tom, it impresses to me the thought of, what if you had one good friend? What if you had two good friends? What if you had this network of 5 people, 10 people that you believed in, that supported you? And that's what Marcella is talking about. I don't think the numbers never need to be, sure, it's great if they're millions and things like that, but what if you had one friend, two friends, two supporters? What do you think about that theory, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Marcella is basically saying, the sort of subtext of what she's saying there about Michael, is that Michael has built a community of trust around his brand, around his work, right? And Marcella is essentially saying, I trust Michael. Michael has delivered consistently for me over time, and that consistency has built trust. And so I will come here to support Michael, to listen to what Michael has to say, because he always shows up and he always delivers, right? This is something I talk about I talk about with my clients when I talk about creating content on a consistent basis, doing episodic, value-driven content for your audience through my legendeering strategy. Is because it will build trust with your community over time, right? And the sort of analogy I use is, I remember when I was between 10 and 12 years old. I don't remember exactly how old I was, but between 10 and 12 years old, my parents started leaving me home alone. And at first it was for an hour here or there, right? And they set expectations when they left me home alone. They said, here's what we expect, right? You are allowed to do this. You are not allowed to do that, right? They set boundaries and expectations, and then they left for an hour or so. And then they came back and the house was still standing and I was still alive. And so they did it again, right? And they left for 2 hours, and they left for 4 hours. And then eventually they left me at home alone for the whole day by myself, right? And it was because I had demonstrated to them consistently that I could be trusted. And that's exactly the same thing that you can do if you consistently show up for your community, if you consistently deliver value to them, and if you consistently create content. Like, my medium is through video primarily, but that consistency over time builds trust. And that's what Michael has been successful in doing. And I think Marcella being here and talking about Michael the way she did is proof of that. So that's what I took out of that conversation. And I think it's super cool that Marcella feels that way about Michael, and that they have that relationship, because at the end of the day, isn't that the goal, right? Don't you want to have those kinds of relationships with people in your orbit that are built on trust, that are built on mutual appreciation? I mean, it sounds like a good deal to me.
Well said, Tom. I want to introduce you guys to one of the most consistent people there is. The next guy around, and it's John Jay. And John, I actually showed my wife one of your posts this morning. So here's somebody that you meet him, then he comes on, he gives tips and things like that. I've talked to him on Saturdays before. But now, not only is his content something that I trust, that I look at, but there's been multiple times where I now share that content with other people and say, you got to look at this. John shared something about an Uber driver a few weeks ago, an Uber driver in a community near mine. And he had this article long before a lot of people around here did. And today it was, which is interesting, Tom, the article that he shared today was about video. And in this case, the police had used a video. And I think by having video, in this case, it exonerated an officer for something that maybe had there been no video, you might think, maybe something that in this case he did was wrong, but the video actually told a different story. So, John Jay, would you like to introduce yourself, drop a tip, and or ask a question? You never ask a question, but if you want to ask a question, you can, my friend.
Just because I don't ask questions doesn't mean I don't listen. I do listen, I do consume it, and I try to get as much as I give. My name's John. I'm a retired police sergeant, and I got hurt and retired young. And about 8 years after retiring, I began pursuing a career in broadcasting. I've been in the audio space in the early days of what you now consider podcasting since about 1999, somewhere around there. I've been a full-time FM music DJ for about 18 years. And in 2017, I took what I learned from the radio world, combined it with the human experience of the law enforcement world, and created the Law Enforcement Day podcast. And it was named that due to a partnership with someone at a really, really big Facebook page that I was able to leverage at the time. And within a few months, since we were in front of a large audience, posting organically on Facebook, a radio station contacted us. They liked an episode, said, "Can you create a radio version?" We did. The main thing is you got to have a clock for that. And now we're syndicated through Talk Media Network. Their website is talkmedianetwork.com. We broadcast on 81 stations across the United States, and then go online as a podcast a couple weeks later. And it's pitched to radios, doing for radio what Investigation Discovery Channel does for television, meaning we have crime and trauma stories told by those who've been there. So it could be law enforcement, other first responders, military victims of crime, their spouses or survivors, talk about trauma they went through, how it impacted them, what they did to build their lives afterwards. And the other part of which is about 40%, is what it's like doing real life investigations, a look behind the badge, so to speak. So kind of what you're leaning towards talking about, the social media. I'm on social media all the time. My primary focus is Facebook. That generates the second most traffic for my podcast, and I post on other ones at different schedules, but everything goes around there. And then it's Instagram's another one, but I don't use Instagram to drive traffic. I do that more for exposure and branding. So yes, I do update periodically my podcast, my social media pages. More than likely, when a new station is being added, I do it with posting and also in the about or header information, for lack of better words. And that's something I do all the time because if you're not promoting on social media, for example, if you don't, there's a quote I heard somewhere. If you post on social media, you have a chance of something going viral and blowing up and building your brand and exposing your product to a wide mass variety of people. If you never post on social media, you have zero chance of that happening. So it's free. It's something at our fingertips. Uh, it does cost time, and it's the biggest time suck for my day because I do it 7 days a week, 365, starting at 6 a.m. till about midnight, and I pre-schedule a lot of stuff. Thanks a lot.
John Jay, man, thanks as always, and such good uh, input and value in what John's saying there. And I think one of the things that we want to clarify here, just for people that are just starting to share their story, is what is your goal when you're posting on a certain place? And John Jay is clear. Well, this place, I'm looking for exposure. This is marketing. This is so you can view my full podcast and different things like that. So having this understanding, because I'll hear somebody say, well, I didn't make money off that TikTok. No shit. You didn't make that money off that TikTok at that point, right? You posted 4 things. You have 10 followers at this point. Now, if you had a network or something like this where you could reach out and say, hey, I like what you've been doing. Would you check out my video service, or would you come to my event or something like that? You have to have an idea of why you're doing something. So thank you, John. Okay, let's meet. We're going to keep meeting people. Let's move on to George. George, my friend, man, where you been?
Hello. Great to see you guys. Yeah, I've been on and off of Clubhouse. I've been, just recently just kind of getting really back into the groove. I'm seeing a lot of familiar faces. John, to add on to what we were talking about last night, I will be sending over that RSS feed to you. And thank you again for that. It's just been like last night. It's just been nuts over at home, but I'm excited for what's to come. I've been saying this, like on several other pages, recently, that very enthusiastic about my show right now because the guests are terrific. The audio quality is improving. Feels like there's like a stronger sense of direction, especially now that I have like some mini series chunks set up over the next several months. And for May, I'm going to be highlighting some podcasts. And what's funny about that is that there are so many podcasts that I want to highlight. I'm almost wondering like if I should do like some smaller episodes or something, just so that way I can fit two podcast spotlights on one episode. So what I'm wondering is like, considering the fact that there are only so many weeks in a day, and I want to keep my show weekly, so I don't I don't run the risk of burning myself out on it. But I'm wondering what you guys do when you have like so many possibilities for content for your show, but it's difficult to really kind of sparse it out in terms of being able to accommodate everyone that you believe should be accommodated. Obviously, you can't accommodate everyone, But I'm curious to see like what you guys do when you have like so many opportunities ahead of you, but there's only so much time you can work with for your show. So for that, I'm done.
Thanks, George. Yeah, I mean, I'll jump in on this for sure, and then I'll kick it out to some other experts we have in the room today. But for me personally, my sort of the way I hold it up is, or what I try to do is, I try to keep the content as simple as I can, and try to minimize the effort that it takes after the fact to get it out, right, to publish it. So one of the ways that I do that is, as Michael was talking about earlier with his podcast, they don't edit it, they let it live, right? And I think there is value to that. There is value to letting things live and just being, again, I'm gonna use a word that we've been using a lot the last few weeks in this room, just being authentic, right? So letting it live, letting it be live, flaws and all, actually makes it easier for your audience to relate to you, to see you as a human being, to see you as someone like themselves, and to empathize with you, and to grow and develop a relationship with you. So I like to keep things simple, and that means that I can put out a lot more content than if I was getting really, really nitty gritty about editing everything down. So my attitude is streamline your production process, specifically post production, to get the content out with a lighter lift. That's my thought. John, you do a lot of posting. You put a lot of content out. What are your thoughts on how to streamline the process for people? Keep it a light lift.
I don't know. I explain. I do things a little differently. I have to create for radio first, so that means I have to have a certain level of audio production quality, broadcast quality, everything else. So it does involve some editing. I've sped it up quite a bit because there's a lot less editing I do than in the early days. And secondly, by listening to past episodes, as I'm editing, I can see where I can shorten things. I can get rid of and ums and likes or whatever the filler words, the things that create problems. A little cue, a little tip is if I make a mistake or my guest makes a mistake, I tell them, say edit loudly, pause about a second, restart your sentence over. It makes it real easy for me to find. So I have to have a certain level of quality. Otherwise, radio stations will drop me very quickly. And some of these stations have taken years to get, and I've been on for years. So I take that very seriously. When it comes to the podcast version of it, it's produced a little bit differently. But what I try to do is I have many, many episodes, I think about 390 plus. So I'm posting, and organic posts with links outside of Facebook get the least amount of reach. But if I'm not posting those, people are not aware. What I try to do is stick with the ones that are most successful, the oldest ones that people more likely have not seen. And about every third post is an old episode of the podcast. And what I really focus on is those that produce the most listens rather than put out ones that promote, takes me the same amount of time, rather than post something that produces zero results that no one seems to be interested in. And I'm exaggerating, but it takes me the same amount of time as to put up one that gets great results every time I put it up. So what I do is I look at my statistics, my analytics, see which ones are being downloaded the most, being listened to the most, being listened to the longest, getting the most engagement on social media, and focus on those. And that's what I do. Thanks.
Hey, John, I love this idea here, and I wanted to something I've been thinking. I wish our buddy David Campbell was in the room because he has this Upcycle Canada, and we talk about repurposing content a lot, and I wanted to reframe that word to upcycling the content, right? What if we could use that content again and maybe better? Not that it wasn't great the first time, but maybe we can use it, feature it, that quote from the episode or something like that, to use it to have more impact. So I want to change the vernacular here and start thinking of it as upcycling this content, because think about how many people, like I met John Jay in the last year. So if John Jay has, how many years you've been podcasting, John?
Since 2017.
And
This
I know
month
it's
makes 5 years.
okay, and I know it's traditional radio. So here's a guy that's been on radio for 5 years. I've known him 1 year. I told you earlier that I like his content. I'm now showing my wife his content. If he shared something from, think about how simple this is. If he shared something from 5 years ago, tomorrow that he believes in, it's the facts are I never saw it before because I only met him 1 year ago. Think how many people each of us has met in the last year, in the last 2 years that don't know my friend Tom here was nominated for multiple Emmys, that don't know that I wrote 10 books or whatever it is, that don't know that you have shows, that don't know what Marcella's up to, don't know that all the great things producer Jimmy's up to. Speaking of which, Tom, you made a video about producer Jimmy, so you can introduce her.
I didn't make a video about producer Jemmy. So I made I made a video where I highlighted a misstep in her speech that producer Jemmy made, which led to me making a misstep in my speech that she rightly corrected me on, which I thought was funny and I wanted to share. But then I also just yesterday put out a video of something that producer Jimmy shared in this room last week that I thought was important for people to hear and couldn't come from my mouth. It had to come from hers. And so I wanted to share that out with the world beyond Clubhouse and beyond this live stream. So that's what I did. But I think producer Jemmy is she's here every week. She's an amazing part of this community and somebody that has a ton to offer. So the floor is yours. Our friend producer Jemmy, share a tip, drop some knowledge, let us know what you got going on.
Oh my goodness. Thank you guys so much. Y'all are just too kind, honestly too kind. And I haven't had a chance to see the video yet, Tom, so I'm going to have to go check it out, but I appreciate so much that my
Jimmy,
words.
I want to pause here for a second.
Mhm.
The video of you talking, sharing a bit of your story is fantastic. You opening up and just talking about looking fear in the eye and saying, I will accept this no more. And my love for motivation, Tom nailed it and you nailed it. So continue, producer Jimmy.
Oh my gosh. But the fact that my words can be taken and extended out and shared with beyond my intention is so humbling. And I appreciate that so much. So thank you so much for sharing that. That means a lot to me. So I want to share something. I'll try to make it brief because I want to look at the idea of revisiting what the content that you've put out there from a slightly different lens. I'm going to share it from the perspective of what I'm considering right now. So if you may have heard before that prior to being a podcast producer, I was a web designer and developer, among many other things. Well, my website for my business is something that I've built. I built from scratch. I built it myself. And every iteration thus far has been by my hand. Well, I've realized in the last maybe 6 months or so that the website's still great. The website does what it was intended to do, but there's now more that I need it to do. All the services that we offer and have always offered are still represented there. However, there's a lot that's missing and I need to refresh it. And what's missing is all the things that I have built in the last maybe year, courses, classes. The weird thing, I think it was Tom that was mentioning how weird it is to feel like to call yourself any kind of influencer or something like that. But people have been reaching out to me for my own personal brand to be part of something. So it's been really interesting. And I know that I need to lean into that. And so my intention now is to try to go into my website in the next week or so and make sure that the homepage especially and the navigation of the menu really makes it easy for people to find what I want them to find. And here's why I'm highlighting this. It's because if you're building a brand, and like has been said in this room already, that brand should and needs to evolve over time. You should grow. So as you're growing, the content that you're putting out there needs to be updated as well. New headshots, new this, new that. But for me right now, that means revamping my website to more clearly draw in the kind of opportunities I'm looking for now. So for what it's worth, I hope that helps. Just that's what was on my mind is I need to revamp my website to more clearly show some of the things that aren't because I've added them to the website, but it's been like hodgepodge. Okay, I'll create a landing page and I'll stick it here. I'll create a landing page, I'll stick it there. So there's only so far that can go before you need to actually make it clean and revisit it. So if you're listening to this with your mind on your social media, same thing, your Instagram grid, let it evolve as you evolve or whatever else that you're putting out there. So I hope that helps. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome. I always appreciate being in your space. I'm complete.
Producer Jimmy, me and Tom are fans. We may start a fan club. We might invite you. We just might just invite everybody else and honor her. What do you think, Tom?
Yeah, I mean, I think I think we're in the early stages of building a community here around through this room and this space that we create every week for people to come on and share their stories and share their wisdom and ask questions and get answers and no doubt in my mind that producer Jemmy is a core and key component, key member of that community, and so we are always happy to see her smiling face in her profile picture jump into the Clubhouse room and be a part of the conversation. So yeah, I'm in. I'm a fan for
And I
sure.
will tell you, I finally accomplished. I reached out to producer Jimmy via Instagram. My favorite, my creepiest thing that I like to do. Is it creepy? I don't know. I actually like to call people in their DMs, and their face pops up. Producer Jimmy answered. I think I watched her cook dinner or whatever she was doing when I interrupted her day, but she was super sweet, and her smile was as genuine when I saw her face to face as it is on that little thumbnail picture there. So thank you, Jimmy.
Thank you guys both. And I appreciate you. Dominick, that call made my day. So I appreciate you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, somebody that makes my day a lot is Charlie. Charlie, what do you got going on? Charlie is like, Tom, Charlie is like an onion because there's so many layers to him, and I keep finding more layers all the time. But there's got to be a better term than an onion. If anybody has that, you can write in the comments or flash your mic. I need a better term for something with layers that is not an onion, right? I don't, because it's pleasant when I find out these new
Cake.
layers.
He's a slice of cake.
He is a slice of cake because each bite is more enjoyable than the next. So Charlie, you're up. Now you have to live up to that introduction.
Good morning, everybody. I like to say I'm a work in progress. My background is in 3 maximum security prisons, and then I was a commercial residential waste hauler, recycler. So my background really isn't in communications, isn't in social media, it's not in speaking platforms. But I learned how to do some of this rather quickly when I rescued a dog that became famous, Star the dog. If you don't know her story, she's on Wikipedia. She's a dog that was shot and came back to life. And I devoted my energies into this dog and rescuing her. And she taught me how to live. And she taught me how to communicate. And she taught me how to write. And she taught me how to reach human beings. And before this dog, I was just a scorekeeping transactional guy that had a really good credit score, no debt, and lived very comfortably. But that really wasn't giving me any level of happiness. So today, with this dog that has changed my life, I am an author. I am on podcasts. I have a Facebook page that reaches every continent in the world. And I think it's important that I'm getting what I need, and that is human interaction. And it's the most intimate here on Clubhouse. This is where I come to refuel and be able to deliver a message to people. I will say this, Tom talked about it. We're finally seeing some reality on Instagram posts. We're seeing some reality on Facebook where stuff is not so scripted. People are real. Even models are letting themselves be shown and not glamour shots so that they're relatable. And I'm about as simple as they come. I'm a simple guy with a complicated mindset. But I found what made me happy, and that's my passion in reaching people. And this is important. You know, TikTok creates a lot of views. Sometimes your Facebook page doesn't do as well. Sometimes you might only see 3 likes or 1 comment. Well, I post a lot of times, primarily on Facebook, a little bit on LinkedIn, TikTok regularly. I like TikTok. Kind of keeps me young at heart. I kind of go there for just energy, good information sometimes. But here's the story. I cannot carry the ball forward. I need help in doing stuff. I get contacted by a New York artist just recently, and she said, "Look, I wrote a song about your dog. I would like you to listen to it." And I just couldn't believe this. I mean, this is an artist that has stuff that is on iTunes, iHeart. And she wrote this beautiful song and a beautiful bio about my dog and about the rescue. And now it's been released. And now the next part will be the lyrics. And this is the kind of stuff that there's a legacy that goes forward. A hero in my life is a man named David Hoffman. He's a longtime documentary maker. He's been making documentaries since the 60s. And he loves human beings. He contacted me because he saw some posts I made and made a documentary about me and my dog. So social media has been very kind to me. Learned a lot. I've also learned to speed up my story and not take a million years to deliver what I have to deliver, even though I'm a little bit winded right now. I got a lot out of John Jay. I got on his show where I like the upbeatness. I love that we're moving along and that the story gets told with a lot of energy. And if people want to learn more, they can follow you in other places. So that's what I have on this beautiful Wednesday. I'm looking forward to delivering my book to the world, 14th and 2nd. I've been talking to Dominick a lot about that. And I love listening to everybody because I learned something. Thank you. Complete.
Hey, my friend, and thank you for sharing your story. And I think, Tom, something that he mentioned is that really a story went viral. A story was told, and now he opens up and he uses his story to tell his life story and impact people through the life that he's had, this exciting, unique life. But it was a moment in time captured in many different ways, and then all of a sudden it goes viral, and now he's using that to impact people, right? Create that ripple, make a difference. So Tom, something we were talking about earlier, and I'm not going to talk about this to be political or anything like this, but we were talking before we got on, like the importance of storytelling and how in Ukraine, Zelensky himself has used his camera to change perception, and now we're seeing where, like, maybe in some parts of the world the press isn't free and things like that, but they're able to show actually what's going on and change the narrative through storytelling. And that's what we as business owners, influencers, marketers, storytellers, that's what we're trying to do, is tell a story. So Tom, you had some thoughts on that before, so you want to touch on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dom. I mean, I think, and I don't mean this in any way, excuse me, I don't mean this in any way to trivialize what's going on in Ukraine right now, what the people there are facing, and what is clearly an invasion of their country, staged by Putin. But what I think we're seeing Zelensky do is use video, because it is an incredibly effective tool for communication. Use video to shape the perception on a global scale, right? He is using video to rally the world behind the Ukrainian people. And he's using it to tell stories in a way that you cannot do with other mediums, right? The video that really jumps out to me is the one that came out a few days into the invasion, where I think the U.S. had offered to help evacuate him. Other NATO countries had offered to help evacuate Zelensky because they obviously clearly and rightfully believed that he was very high on the hit list for the Russian forces. And he declined, and then he put out a video with himself and a bunch of his cabinet members or the equivalent in the Ukraine government in the center of Kyiv, on the street, and literally all he said was, "He's here, he's here, he's here, he's here, he's here, and I'm here, and we're not going anywhere." That was the whole video. And it completely changed the narrative, right? Because it is such a powerful way to deliver a message. That visual of him holding up his phone and pointing at, the members of his staff and his team all surrounding him and himself in the heart of Kyiv, and saying, "We're here and we're not going anywhere. We are with you. We are with, our people. And we want to let the world know that we are not backing down," was incredibly powerful. And so what we're seeing happen on a grand scale, we can also learn lessons from and use ourselves on a smaller scale, right, to impact our community. So when you see something worth saying, worth sharing, worth highlighting, this is exactly why I put out that video yesterday, from that incredibly powerful moment that producer Jemmy shared in this room last week, is because it was something that people I felt needed to hear, right? And so I shared it. I created a video out of it, and I shared it because I wanted people to hear it. And so it's just something I want people to have in the back of their minds. Use the tools in your toolbox and use them to positively influence your community, to create to communicate most effectively with your community, and use it in a positive way to better your world and the world around you. And I think that's what we're seeing President Zelensky do in Ukraine right now. And it's something that we can all learn from, for sure. I'm complete.
Tom, thank you for sharing. Spectacular. I get to spend time with Tom. I call Tom, and this is the kind of stuff, like, before we even came in this room today, I was almost in tears listening to him share. One, it's passion, right? It's passion about his video, but it's also this empathy, understanding that there's people out in the world hurting, and maybe your story, maybe like my friend Brian P. Swift down there. Brian, I'm gonna go to Brian. Brian has a nonprofit called SOAR. It's Swift Outdoor Accessible Recreation. Brian uses the books, the media, the exposure to help people get outdoors. He, in the past 4 years, he started off writing a book. Right, he thinks, "Oh, I'm gonna write a book," and instantly he used it for the exposure, and now raised almost, I think it's $250,000 for his nonprofit. So tells a story. You see Brian out there with his shirt off in the snow, doing what he does, telling you to get outside. But Brian, tell us a little about how you're using that story.
Well, every story needs to be shared in so many different ways, because I when you guys were talking, I was thinking, who's my favorite? Who's your favorite? Let's say band. Who's your favorite singer? And I don't have one. I don't have a favorite author. I look at this room, and much like that, I don't have a favorite person, because I get so much from everybody. So I glean things from Dominick and Tom and Michael and John and Jamie and Charlie. I mean, we've all been on these. So many of us have been on these groups together and in these in these sessions together, that I try to pick something from everyone. And in doing that, it's kind of like sharing your story. There's, especially today with the way so many people entertain themselves or get information. And a lot of people wonder, well, are people still buying books? It seems like an old thing. Are they? Is it? Do you go digital because that's the way everybody's reading now? And actually, I mean, there's still tons of people that like to pick up the written book, and there's a lot of people who still like going to a brick and mortar store and not just buying off of all the ways you can buy now, uh, you know, without leaving your house. So I think any story worth sharing needs to be shared in so many different ways, so you can connect with different people the way they like to connect. And like they say, how do you what's the best way to get more PR on your first book is supposedly write a second book and whatnot. So that's kind of what I did. And my first book wasn't about SOAR. My first book and starting a 501c3 nonprofit kind of came together at once, because telling my story about breaking my neck at the age of 17 and how blessed I was is what drove me to create SOAR. And one of the things missing was, even though I was very blessed and able to move forward, I I still fought doing things outdoors. And as time went on and I was able to do more things outdoors, I thought, this is something that I've been blessed to be able to do. I need to help other people be able to get those experiences back, because being outdoors is, not just physically therapeutic, it's mentally, it's spiritually, it's emotionally therapeutic. And as we all live through this pandemic, we all, I think, got a little sense of what it's like when that's taken away. And it is a horrible feeling. So, yes, I try to share my story different ways. I've tried to embrace more technology in more ways. I think it's a must if you're looking to make a difference and impact people. Thanks for the floor, Dom. I'm complete.
Thanks, Brian. Thanks for jumping in. Thanks for sharing that. Um, this is the room, Tom. Let's reset here a little bit. We talk Clubhouse. We talk podcasting, publishing, social media. We're live streaming now, so we live stream this every Wednesday. We're here every Wednesday. We started a club, so if you check out, you can follow the club and you'll get pinged. Make sure you connect everybody in the room. If somebody's watching the live stream, this is social audio. This is what you do. It's a great place to connect, meet people. Like Charlie said, it's a intimate thing too, where you can really get to know people in a different way and hear them and see them. And so give it a try. Somebody that I've been following, I think this was one of the first people that got me hooked on social audio. And that's Johnny, man. Johnny is fire on all things. And he is a great storyteller. And I say that because he's entertaining. He tells a story. He's consistent. I know when I spend my 30 seconds and tap on Johnny, I'm going to get value. So, Johnny, man, share a tip or ask a question. The floor is yours, my friend.
Hey there, friends and foes. Good morning, multiverse. My name is John Pike. I'm the prophet of pop culture, but you can call me Johnny. And I am a multidiscipline storyologist. I'm an actor, singer, magician, published author, comic book artist, and broadcaster. I'm the host of the podcast Back of the Cereal Box, and I tell stories. I entertain the world one story at a time, one audience at a time. And so a tip or a trick or, man, what? I don't know.
Okay, Johnny, here's one. Because something you do so well. How do
Okay.
you do it all? You're on like 60 platforms. You're killing it.
Well, no, okay. So first of all, that might seem that way, but that's not true. I'm on 2 platforms and Clubhouse. Now, I'm on Facebook, I'm on Instagram. Well, I guess YouTube counts. But here's how I do it all. I am very, very intentional about my time budget. I create a time budget for every day, for every hour of the day. And I assign every hour a name. And the only thing I do in that hour is what is assigned by name to that hour. And if I don't complete something in that time frame, and it might be 30 minutes, it might be an hour, it might be 2 hours, it depends on what it is. But if I don't complete everything that I have on my plate in that time budget allotted slot, it gets carried over to the next day, because we're not putting anyone on the moon. We're not doing brain surgery. Nobody's life is on the line. So I give myself grace to carry things over to the next day, and it gets put on the next day's time budget. Conversely, if I finish something early, I don't move on to the next thing in the time budget immediately. I will use that extra time to reset, to just rest. And, sometimes I just sit there and think about what I've just accomplished. And I budget time to create, I budget time to market, I budget time to rest, I budget time to do nothing, I budget time to be entertained, I budget time to spend time with my family. And you put on your time budget the things that are important to you and the things that you have priority for. And if they're not important to you, they don't belong on your time budget. And that's how I get so much done. And that's my tip of the day. I'm Johnny. Ta-da!
I think I just want to jump in real quick, Dom. I think that really kind of, Johnny's calling it a time budget. To me, what springs to mind is, I have sort of a to-do list, right? I think a lot of people have a to-do list, right? And I think the trap that a lot of people fall into with their to-do lists is they expect to be able to cross everything off of that list. And that is unrealistic, right? My to-do list is an evolving document that I am always adding to and always crossing off. So like, just because you never get to the end of the to-do list doesn't mean you're not accomplishing things, right? So crossing something off the to-do list is an accomplishment. Don't feel like you have to complete the to-do list. I think not completing the to-do list, having more things to add to the list all the time, growing what you're doing, the influence that you're having, the impact that you're having on your community, means that you're doing something right. So don't worry about completing the to-do list. Just make sure you are consistently crossing things off. That's my thought. That's what I wanted to throw in there. Hopefully that rings for other folks here. I like the idea of the time budget that Johnny was talking about. I know people that are hyper scheduled, that works for them, where they literally have every day scheduled out in 15-minute increments, because it gives them order, right? And helps them make sense of their day. So that might work for some people, but it doesn't work for everybody. So the trick is finding what works for you. For me, what works is having this sort of never-ending to-do list that I'm constantly adding to and constantly crossing things off of. That's what works for me. It's like, it's a circular list. It just, the content changes over time, but it's always there, right? It's a daily practice. So that's what works for me. So I think it's just a matter of committing to finding what works for you, and then pursuing that, right? Finding something that works and refining it over time, right? Iterate that process, Don't say I'm gonna schedule every day into 15-minute increments and then just do that and then ultimately give up on it because it doesn't really work for you, right? Try it, see how it works. Maybe 30-minute increments work better for you, right? Maybe you do 3 15-minute increments that are laser focused and then one 15-minute increment out of every hour that is sort of free time, where you get up, you stretch your legs, you allow yourself to breathe. That's something that's important for me. I get up and walk away from my desk, periodically throughout the day just to clear my head and refocus myself, because that's what works for me. So find what works for you and then commit to it. That's my advice, and hopefully that'll help for some of the folks here. What do you think, Dom? How do you structure your day? What's your version of a time budget?
As I just got beeped by somebody. Hey, I consider it, I think it's either Stephen Covey or Franklin Covey. I have this theory of one, you have the list, and then you are marking A, B, C, D off of this list. The ones I have, or the A's I have to get done each day. These are then the B's, C's, D's. But to your point, I should add more do, make social media or this. I have these, like I'm in an office. If you're watching the live stream, I can see a whiteboard and I can look at other projects and things like that I have to do. So I always have a list, a long-term list. But maybe if I added that to my ABCs, Ds, and then said long-term projects, and then those daily things that are just habit now, like the 20 times I post on social a day, those are habits, and it's ingrained that I know at 6, 9, noon, 3, 6, 9, that there's posts coming out at those times that I'm scheduling at certain times, because those are harder times for me to post at. But the 6, 9, 12, 3, 3 is because it's somebody else's 12. 12 is because it's somebody else's 9. Those are times that I'm trying to hit the West Coast, East Coast, Central. That's why I'm doing those things. So, okay, Tom, I've talked enough. Somebody,
I just want to throw one other thing in there, Dom, is that in terms of like actual implementation for me, where does that list live? Right? That list lives in my Google Calendar. Right? So like my Google Calendar is kind of like my Bible, right? If it is not on that calendar, it does not exist. Right? So like everything that is important, that has to happen, that has to get done, that is on, is a deliverable for a client or is business related. This Clubhouse room, right? This live stream that we do every week is on my calendar every week, right? So that I don't accidentally double book myself, so that I don't run into problems, and so that I am aware of it when I look at my calendar at a glance. I know not only what am I aiming to get done that day, but what are my commitments for that day as well. So that's where my list lives. It lives in my Google Calendar. If that's, I just thought it was helpful to clarify that it's not it's not a piece of paper. It's my Google Calendar, and it just kind of moves with me from day to day. I'm complete.
well done, Tom. I'm looking at somebody's bio here that seems to be an expert in this space, so it's perfect that we are talking to Dr. Marina. That's what it says, Dr. Marina. And before we get into Dr. Marina, I wanted to say, if anybody, we always consider this an open forum, so and we'll ask you to speak or something like that, or come up if you want to. But feel free to raise your hand if I haven't been fast enough on the button. Today I see Clubhouse added a conversation here, so I've been answering some stuff in there. So if I'm not, and Tom's answering questions on the live stream. So sometimes we drop the ball. We can't do it all. But Dr. Marina, thank you for being here. Share a tip, ask a question.
Wow. Thank you, Dominic, for inviting me. Very gracious of you. I was following Michael. Michael is the Canadian author who published a book that is really a tool for humanity, especially now. And I think out of the many lessons I learned from his teaching, Mind Your Vibes stays with me. And if I would have amnesia, I think I would remember that. Mind your vibes. It's simply because, yes, we are in a storytelling business. And yes, there's so many forms of sharing a story and understanding the power of the story and relating. Actually, the recent reports showing that actually when you listen to somebody's story you relate to, that is not only just an emotional connection that you create, but it's a physical connection because the brain paths are changing. So I'm not going to go into that. I'm going to refer to what Tom said and stayed with me. He was talking. You were talking, Tom, about the to-do list, and for me, the to-do list is only one item. Got only one item. My only to-do list is to be myself, and understanding that the most important story of all times, more important than the Bible, and I don't mean to offend anyone, but it is true, is the story you tell yourself about yourself when nobody is listening. That's the story. And coming back to Michael Rosier and how much he impacted me, along with another couple of million of readers and active fans he created in his lifetime, is is I think is coming down to understanding that your story is yours and you decide what to do with your story. You share it or not, it's a personal choice. But in reality, your story belongs to the world. Your story belongs to the world. And somebody mentioned the Ukrainian president and how he changed the narrative. And it is fair to say that media is a double-edged sword, and media has the power to change minds and hearts and through storytelling. However, what the gunpowder did for the war, the printing press has done for the mind. And look at the mess we are in. So this is why I'm inviting everyone to become a journalist. My passion is to broadcast your passion. And that should be your passion too, to broadcast your own passion. So sharing your story changes your story and the future. So make no mistake, your story matters. So every month or about there, 8 times a year, we run summits. And this Sunday, we are honoring Michael. We have the first 24-hour positive thinking summit. Starts at 20th of March at 20 GMT London time and ends with a epic address from Michael Rosier on the 21st of March at uh, 2021 GMT. So I don't know, come along, grace the stage. You have to register to be on the summit stage because it's to honor the speakers. And unless you register, you can't speak. You can speak to all our rooms, in all our rooms before that, but the summit is for the speakers. So it's about time for you to bring out your light, to understand that you have something that absolutely nobody ever could take away from you, and that is your own light. Learning to walk tall into your life is not about you, is about the people who are waiting for you, is about you borrowing, lending your light to somebody else's dark hour. And look around us. There is somebody right now out there who needs you badly. What are you going to do? Are you going to shy away? Or are you going to change the narrative, the only story that matters, and understand that your story is not only going to change your story, but somebody else's future? So thank you so much, Dominic. Truly grateful for being here.
Dr. Marina, thank you. A positivity summit. You have to follow her, check it out. I mean, who doesn't want, Tom, who doesn't want more positivity in this idea that her delivering the idea about that we couldn't agree with more. I speak for you that your story matters. You said that a few weeks ago, and just it's lived in my brain since that. I wish I would have said it first, but Dr. Marina, it's beautiful, and thank you for reminding everybody wherever you're at, whatever part of the globe you're at, whatever's going on in your life, your story matters. You can make a difference, and that's where, as Tom with video, me with publishing, us being here today, we believe that each of us has a story that can make a difference. So our mission is to try to help you share it as many ways and as best you can. So thank you, Dr. Marina. Let's go to, I think it's Yolanta. Yolanta, how are you today?
Good morning, Dominic, and everyone else in the room. Thanks for having me. I am doing lovely. I'm so glad I jumped in the room because I like anything with podcasting and wanting to learn about publishing. So here I am. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so then what if you want to ask a question or drop a tip? One, when somebody says they want to learn, we love to hear that. So for publishing, I'll give you my if just start writing that story. Get yourself a little notebook. If there's something you're passionate about, if there's something you go to bed at night thinking about, just start. Or you're in a business and you have these tips and tools that you think can help other people. Start writing that down in a little notebook or in a Word document and just start sharing it. Start growing that document. And all of a sudden, before you know it, those sentences become chapters and a chapter becomes your first book. So that's where I would go there. So Jolanta, thank you. And I'm sure you'll get right next to you is a storyteller, a book writer, Elizabeth, one of my favorites. I follow her. I have her book now that I'm getting ready to read. I'm finishing Simon Sinek's Start with the Why, and then I'm moving on to Elizabeth's book. So, Elizabeth, would you like to offer a tip for a new book writer or storyteller?
Hi, Dominic. I saw you skiing. We were both skiing, I think, last week. Is that right?
Yes, and I am not very good. I think you were on bigger mountains. I think wherever you're, Pittsburgh, I was about an hour outside of Pittsburgh. We're at about 2,500 feet elevation there, and it looked like you were far higher.
I was in the Swiss mountains. You know, Switzerland is my home country. I was born there.
I'm not ready for that yet, but go on.
I'm back in Cyprus now. Anyway, I'm Elizabeth. I am a storyteller. I wrote a book called The Soul Kit, First Aid for the Soul, because, you know, when you cut your finger, you go to the first aid box. But what do you do when your soul hurts? So that's why I write this book. It's a kind of a guide. And somebody, I don't know if anybody mentioned it, and it's not my phrase, but this phrase that it's important that we all tell our stories because your story could be somebody else's survival guide. I think that's very important that we share what we have experienced. And then there is this other word, which is history. And you know, in my I explain or I interpret history as his story because it always depends which side wrote the history book, because there are so many conflicts in the world and there is always two sides to a story. So, you know, history is a tricky thing and there is never only just one it's not the fault of only one side. It's a very, very complicated and complex world. And a tip. Do I have a tip today? Yeah, I mean, just I was actually listening to Tom. That was a tip for me. I have to start using Google Calendar because I'm a mess. I don't write things down very often, and then I double book. And I have a podcast. My podcast is called Most Memorable Journeys, and I talk to people about their journeys, and I talk about my journeys because I was a tour guide when I was young, but now I'm getting older and I forget things, and I really need to use a calendar properly because yeah, I don't always sometimes forget and don't and double book. And a tip from my side, just keep going. Consistency is key. Even if you feel sometimes that nobody listens, nobody sees your posts, some people do, and the more you put your story out there or yourself out there, the more impact you have and the more lives you can improve. And I'm done speaking.
Thanks, Elizabeth. Thanks for sharing. Always nice to have you in the room, and I'm glad that that me talking about my Google Calendar and how I use Google Calendar to try to streamline my life was helpful for you. It's definitely been helpful for me, and it's one of the reasons. It's funny. I'll mention something else we've talked about in here before. But one of the things that I use to make sure that I don't double book is I use Calendly. And I know Dominick has been converted to Calendly from conversations that we've had in this room, and he is a big fan of it now too. It seriously is like, as a productivity tool, as a scheduling tool, is one of the best investments I've ever made, and it's not a very big investment. It's like, like $10 a month or something like that, and it just streamlines all of your scheduling. It means you don't get double booked. It means you have time between your meetings if you want to. It's a great tool. So a scheduling tool like Calendly for sure will help you keep your calendar nice and neat and keep you from being double booked. And that's one of the reasons why I was saying, like, if it's not in my calendar, it doesn't exist. So I add stuff to my calendar all the time, so that if I know I want to set aside time, I put it in my calendar so nobody can schedule a meeting with me during that time, so that I'm clear on what I'm doing. And I just wanted to also, real quick, I know we have room chat this week, which I guess is a new feature on Clubhouse, a newer feature on Clubhouse. And I've been answering some questions in there for people on where to find the live streams, and I'll just say it out loud here for anybody else who's curious. If you just Google our social media handles, it's being live streamed on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, and Twitch. And if you Google either my social media handle, which is at Talex Media LLC, or if you Google Dominick's social media handle, which is at Motivation Champs, then you'll be able to find the live streams on our different social media channels. So go ahead and do that, so that you can find that. And then in that chat, we had a question come up. But Dom, did you have something you wanted to say first before we go to
Yeah,
Jolance's question?
you're good. You're good on both, and it's interesting because the chat's so interesting, right? This new tool they keep adding. When I first got on Clubhouse, there was no back channel. I don't think you could ping other rooms is the way you can, like, ping out to the whole world right now. But anyway, I wanted to say about the calendar. You guys converted me. It was coming in this room converted me, and I'm all in. And even times where now to my wife, I'm like, could you just send me a calendar? Could you get on and no, I don't mean to be not romantic there, but
I
or
bet she
what's
loves
the right
that. I
word?
bet she loves that.
Yeah, like, I don't know. The kids have a dentist appointment. I don't know, right? Because now I'm living by this calendar. And Elizabeth, one thing that I will say, and Brian, this calendar is so good when you're dealing with people in different time zones. It eliminates the issue of time zone, where before I'd have 5 emails. I hate wasted time. I do a lot of things. I have zero time to waste time. So when you start seeing the futility of 5 messages going back and forth, well, is that this time zone? Is that this time? Are we talking Central? It's a waste of my time for $10, $12 a month, whatever that is. I fixed it with Calendly. Tom, they should sponsor us here because we're doing a good job for them. But Tom is right, and I should add more of my to do into my Calendly as well. I have my meetings in my Calendly, and I'm starting to even schedule booking time because later in the week I'm working on my creative endeavors more. So I've started to schedule that into my calendar. But even more, like I told my wife, I need to know about the dentist appointments. Or why, Tom, why don't I know when we're going on vacation? She told me 50 times. I asked her, I'm like, please tell me again, but if I put it on my calendar, that's what I'm doing. By next week, it will be on my calendar. And then you said we had a question, so you go back to that.
Yeah, and I'm not 100% sure that I'm pronouncing her name correctly, so please, please, please correct me if I am wrong. Jolanta in the room chat was asking a question. She said she has a question about postings. She didn't ask the question. She just said she had a question about posting. So wanted to give her the floor to ask that question, see if we could get some answers for her. So Jolanta, the floor is yours. What's your question about posting?
Thanks so much, Tom. I appreciate. I didn't get a chance to share my story as well, so I just wanted to back up a little bit. I just started my podcast, and I am looking for ways. I think Dominick or Tom or someone may have mentioned it, or Johnny may have earlier about reaching my own audience because I distribute via iHeartRadio, Google Play, and Amazon now. I don't know why Apple Podcasts is being a pain in my butt, but I'm trying to sign up for their service too uh, to get found on there. So I guess my question is just about how do you go about putting on a really good production for your show? Because I've done 3 episodes now, and it's a learning opportunity for me. So I am coming off out of the film world, and I used to do photography and film for quite a long time, and so I'm entering this podcast world so I can teach people. That's what I really want to use my podcast for. And so I'm just looking for ways where I can either reach other audiences and what platforms have worked for other people. Like, I know someone mentioned LinkedIn on here, or where do you post and where do you get the most success? So I'm probably reiterating something that was said, but I just want to find out where do you guys see your most success for your shows and stuff. Thank you so much for the floor.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I think there's producer Jemmy, I'm sure, has some really, really clear, concise advice for you. So I'm going to go to her in 1 second. I just wanted to say that unfortunately, my answer is it depends. And that's often my answer because I don't believe in sort of one size fits all methodologies. So it depends on who your ideal audience is, who you're trying to reach, and kind of where those folks tend to spend a lot of time online. Those are going to be sort of the more fruitful places. So I think a really, really good step is to work to identify who your ideal audience is, and then look at where those people like that ideal audience member tend to spend a lot of time. And then those are going to likely be the places where you'll find the most success for posting and for sharing your podcast and your endeavors. But producer Jemmy, I'm sure, has a lot more detail to add on to that. So the floor is yours, Jemmy. Let us know what Jolanta can do.
Thanks so much. I appreciate it. So, Jolanta, yeah, it's about going to where your audience already is, rather than trying to make them come to you. Well, actually, it's about both. So, two things. One, on the side of making them come to you, do make sure that you get yourself into Apple. That's very important. It's a big platform. And then also, if you have a website that you can build, and every time you post an episode release an episode, post it to your website. So over time, that website will create kind of a magnet for people to find you. Um, but also going to where people already are who are looking for your kind of content is the absolute key. So that works in a couple of different ways. It's also first off, it's by platform. So if you have a show that is more business related, then LinkedIn makes sense. More tech related, than maybe Reddit, and more social than perhaps Facebook. More visual arts than perhaps Instagram. So kind of going where your audience is number one. And then once you're in the right kind of media platform, then it's finding the right kind of spaces in the in those platforms. So drilling down even further. So for example, let's say your answer is Facebook. And John's brilliant at this, by the way. So definitely want to follow John with the blue frame. So on Facebook, you can find another Facebook pages that are attracting the audience that you want to attract to your show. And go into those Facebook pages. And John has another whole nother piece of advice on this, but I'll stick to mine. Go into those Facebook pages and engage in the conversations that they're having. And don't promote your show. Okay, that'll probably get you kicked out. But share the same value. So if someone asks a question, or if the page asks a question, then engage on that. If someone asks the page a question, or group, whatever it is, a question, then engage with them. So doing that. It can also be it's online. It can also be in real life as the world is opening up. Looking for perhaps a local meetup group or something like that, where you know that people who are interested in your kind of content are gonna go, or creating it yourself, even creating your own club, your own group. And speaking of clubs, sorry, I'm laughing. I just accidentally scared the crap out of my cat. Speaking of clubs, here on Clubhouse is a fantastic place to find your potential audience, because there are a lot of rooms here that are on specific subject matters. So go into those rooms and engage in those conversations as well. So, I have 2 different shows, one that's more on business side, one that sorry about that. I got a call. So I have 2 different shows, one that's more on the business side, one that's more on podcasting tips. So I tend to go into those spaces because I know not only do I just love talking about that stuff, otherwise why would I have a podcast about it, but also because I know that that's going to help attract the people to my show who I want to be attracted to my show. So I hope all of that helps, Jolanta. And that's it. I'm complete.
Thanks, producer Jemmy. Really appreciate that insight. One of the things, Jolanta, I just wanted to add on to that is I saw you also posted in the chat that you're having trouble with Apple. So I'm gonna tell you right now what I did for my podcast. This is not an endorsement of one service over another. But I used Buzzsprout is the platform that I chose. There's a whole variety of other platforms out there, so I would encourage you to research. But one of the great things about using a platform or a hosting service like Buzzsprout is they do all the hard work for you. They get your podcast listed on Apple. They get your podcast listed on Spotify and Stitcher and Google Play and all the places that you want your podcast listed. So they do all that heavy lift. All you have to do is fill out a couple of forms and boom, your podcast is up there. So for a very, very light lift, I got my podcast listed on all the places where you want to be listed, right? For a very light lift. Now, it cost a couple of bucks, but well worth it, I think, to be able to get in front of the audience and make my podcast super, super easy to find. That same platform, excuse me, that same platform also allowed me to easily share my podcast on my website, right? To create a stream on my website. So I think make sure you pick a platform, a hosting platform for your podcast, and use one. My best advice for that is to use one that will take the stress and the strain and the difficulty out of getting your podcast listed. So I would definitely encourage you to do that. They're not very expensive. They're a couple bucks a month. And I think it's well worth the investment. So with that, I think we are, Jolanta, if you're complete, let us know. If not, if you have other questions, I'm sure you can reach out to one of us or to producer Jemmy. She's always, I don't want to speak for her, but she often extends people reaching out. So use that back channel, reach out to folks and ask questions. I hope that helps you here today. And then I think up next. Oh, go ahead, Jolanta. Did you have something to add?
Yeah, I want to say thanks so much, Tom and producer Jamie. I will be reaching out to either of you or Dominick or anybody here on the stage. I think where I'm stuck is trying to figure out what my show or what part of my show that does well, because I do more the motivational side and I also do business growth. So that's kind of where I probably need to figure out where I really want to be, who I really want to reach, my own audience. And yeah, Jamie, you said some things that really resonated with me. So I'll be I'll be in touch. Thanks so much, you guys. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys. And I didn't want to just disappear, but I have to go open my room. But I just wanted to say thank you so much for having me. It's been wonderful. As always, love your space. Thank you, guys. I'll see you next time.
Thank you.
We're in that fan club, the producer Jimmy fan club. So we're starting it. Okay, next up we have one of my friends, a guy that just is really a giver. This is Ben. He says failure beside him, but he wears that failure as a badge of courage, a badge of honor. We fail in life. We don't always get the results, but we pick ourselves back up, fall down 7, stand up 8, and this is a guy doing that. So, Ben, share a tip with us, ask a question. The floor is yours, my friend.
Oh, well, buckle up, Buttercup, because I got my stuff written down this time, and I got 6 different things, and it's all disjointed, but I've numbered them, and I'm going to try to make it as easy to follow as possible because my brain is a unique one in terms of like difficult to follow. So, if you PTR Jolanta, first I wanted to touch on the fact that you can upload your podcast to IMDb. A lot of people know this, and IMDb has a very high page authority. So once you put your podcast in IMDb, you get your episodes uploaded to it. You link your website to it. You put your tagline of your podcast in it. You do all sorts of stuff like that. Then once Google picks up on it, if you PTR my picture, you can see if you Google without quotes on it or anything, who's the world's number one failure? You got to write number sign 1. I've now since added the tagline with it written out number 1, but I'm above the fold first answer. I'm below the fold with my website as second answer. And this is a weird goal that I've wanted to have to be to be the answer to this. No one's Googling this, so it doesn't really matter to be to be this answer. But I want like Alexa to answer this when someone asks it, who's the world's number one failure, because I think it'd just be hilarious. So I created a resource, a free resource that I can't even make money off of. And honestly, it hurts me every time a podcaster uses it because I lose my first mover advantage. But audiolink.com, and you can follow my in-depth how-to guide for how to do it for podcasts, or you can go follow IMDb's thing. But it was really difficult for me to do it, so I created a how-to guide myself for doing it. And the amount of SEO boost you get is just insane. So I just wanted to mention that to you because it's something you probably hadn't thought of, and also it's a differentiating factor. You can offer it to your guests. You can say, hey, by the way, being on this podcast, you're gonna get onto IMDb, and you're gonna have like things that you can use that as an offering that most other podcasts don't do because they don't even know you can do it at this moment. So that's number 1. Sorry, this is 6, guys. So I'm gonna really try to go through this quickly. Number 2,
Hey,
Apple Podcast.
Ben, you better, you might, if you've been puffing, I want all 6. You got,
I'm
get,
not
you got
pumping. I woke up like 5 seconds before I joined this room.
a hangover from puffing last night, which is all right. Okay, give us the 5 more. Give us, make it.
Dominic, I think I told you one time I smoked weed, and you're like, every time it must be high
Yeah,
as
see,
hell because he's
that's,
always
see,
everywhere.
that's how superficial I am. I'm like, yeah, must have been
It's
smoking.
the ADHD for sure. That's really what it is.
All
I
right,
promise.
get through the next 5,
All right, I'm
man.
going. I'm rushing
Sum
through.
them up.
Ready? Stop
Go
interrupting
on.
me, Dom. I can't do
Focus.
this. How am I supposed to focus? Okay, anyways, Apple Podcasts, pushing it out quicker. If you have more podcasts and you release them more frequently, it will update it 15 minutes later instead of waiting like 2 hours until the next day to push it out. And Apple Podcasts is the number one where people consume it. So you don't want to be late on there because you don't want to not be able to promote your thing because it hasn't hit Apple Podcasts yet. So that's number 2. Now I'm going to number 3. So lack of video skill. Tom, you look unbelievable on my podcast that I recorded with you, but I look like either a washed out weirdo who can't even figure out like how lighting works, or I look like I'm choking to death and I'm about to die because I'm red. And then like even though I'm not looking red, I like my things all whacked out, and I'm using a amazing camera like my iPhone 12 Pro, and I don't know what I'm doing. So like, I do Excel recording videos where I wasn't on them, so I know audio. I know recording things on screen, but like my video skills are so lacking. So I need your skills. So I wish I could just, plug into the matrix of your head into mine so I could know all those info. Number 4, calendar. Huge. It's amazing. I can't do anything without it. Monday, literally everyone on my calendar rescheduled everything all over the place. So then everything that I thought I was like, oh, I'm going to crush it today. Everyone switched everything up on me. And I'm like, this is not how I'm supposed to be able to do this. I thought I was going to succeed today, but whatever. Who cares? For number 5, Dom. So I'm editing a podcast right now, but with my grandmother. She's 90 years old. It's taken me 6 months of random phone calls with her to come up with enough content that I think I can accurately tell her story, because she has MS and she's 90 years old, and it's MS Awareness Month in March, and it's so difficult to edit, and it reminds me of you and your mother's book, and how difficult that must have been to try to distill the story that is so personal to you and make it sound as good as possible. And then my last thing, which is number 6, is I need a to-don't list, not a to-do list, because there's so many things that suck me in and take all my time away. And even things like this, I'm I'm so unintentional with my time and so random with what I do. But also at the same time, the randomness of what I'm doing has unlocked all sorts of opportunities in my life. So I can't say it's something I'd recommend other people do, but for me, it's been working. So I just need to know things like, oh, don't just immediately hop from one thing to another. Take a breath, go drink some water, go take a bite to eat, whatever the thing is, because I just forget about the normal stuff in life. So that's everything, and I'm done.
Let me jump in there real quick. So Ben, something I wanted to hit on about you feeling like you can't do video, right? And specifically, I want to talk about the fact that you compare what you're doing to me, right? And here's the issue with that, right? I am a video professional, right? This is what I do. This is what I've done for my entire professional life. I have done this for more than 20 years. It is ridiculous for you to compare what you're doing to what I do, right? And I'll give you sort of an analogy in a place where I've struggled with this myself, right? So as some of you know, I am a triathlete, right? So I just did my first Ironman triathlon in September. I'm scheduled to do another one in August. But I am 43 years old, right? So I am not the fastest guy in the world. I am not going to win a race, and I do not compare myself to professional athletes, right? When it comes to triathlon, I'm setting a bar for myself. I set goals for myself. They are realistic based on my ability to perform. And that's what I aspire towards, right? I aspire towards being the best version of me that I can be in that context, right? And so that's what I would encourage you to do, Ben, is don't compare your video to mine. It's like me comparing myself to a pro triathlete, right? Be the best version of yourself on video that you can be. Do the best you can do with video. The best you can do is always good enough. And Dom, I know you had something you wanted to add on to that as well.
No, you just kept killing it, Tom, and I appreciate you sharing it like that. But think how far, when you're talking about the comparison, think how far you've come in a year. Think how far you've come in 6 months since you started this podcast. I have this belief. A lot of times an author will come to me and say, well, I only have this many views right now. I only have I haven't sold as many books as Oprah or Michelle Obama or J.K. Rowling or somebody like that. And J.K. Rowling's lived in her car, sent out 50 books to different publishers who denied her. So to think that you are going to play in that same game, you're not. But I want to implore everybody here to get successful in the job you have right now. You spent time, you practiced the 10,000 hours, you had trials and tribulations, and then it got you to this level of success. Sometimes you can pivot and use that level of success in another business because it gave you expertise, it gave you credibility and things like that. But you still have to put in the time, you still have to put in the work. You don't get to jump the line. There is no line jumping with this, right? Maybe you go viral, maybe that kind of thing happens. Okay. But for the most part, you don't get to jump the line. You have to put in the time, put in the work, put in the 10,000 hours, and then just remember to celebrate those wins along the way and think about how far you came. So, Tom, thank you for letting me jump on that. Ben, go on.
All right, last thing I'm going to say. So, really, Tom, it's not about thinking that I'm going to be able to do what you do. It's more about jealousy of seeing the end result. I get that you've been doing it for so long, and like things like this, when you tell me that, or for example, I don't know if anybody here know who LinkedIn Seb is, but he's like absolutely like he's from the future. He's like a time traveler who came back to save humanity by giving us LinkedIn tips because he's so far ahead of everybody else that I have no idea what things are going on. So when you say things like that, or Dom, whatever you just said, it's like it reminds me that my Excel skills are unbelievable and like something that I should be proud of, and but I take it for granted because it's something that I've done for so long. But whenever I help anybody out, they're like, "Oh my God, you just saved me like 20 hours a week for the rest of my life or whatever," and I'm like, yeah, that's just what this does. But for me, it's like super just obvious, and I've been doing it for so long. It's like crazy that people don't even know that you can have it do math. They'll like do it on a calculator and type it in. I'm like, please, you're killing me. This is my like I don't. I'm struggling to even like not die just seeing how people use the thing. You know.
Thank you, Ben. Hey, Tom, go on. Then we're going to get to Elle and Kamara. Go on, Tom.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to say, and this was really to kind of follow up to what you were saying, Dom. You talked about the 10,000 hours thing. And, I think 10,000 hours is sort of like what it takes to become probably, I don't know about expert, honestly. I think maybe like, extremely proficient at or really, really good at something. It takes about 10,000 hours. I don't think you're quite there as an expert at 10,000 hours, but like, to put things in perspective, I did like some quick back of the envelope math a while back, and we talked about this. Ben probably has maybe 100, maybe a couple hundred hours of working towards creating video or creating video content. I've spent, over 20 years professionally focused on creating video content, right? Whether that was in my career in entertainment and television or on other platforms now for my clients that I work with through my business. And some quick back of the napkin math puts me over 40,000 hours dedicated to doing this, right? Over 40,000. Right. So the head start is like not even comparable. Right. So just remember where you are and that you are moving forward. Don't compare yourself to people, who have, such a head start that it's unreasonable. Right. It's not a good comparison to make. And it's just going to make you feel bad about what you're doing. Be proud of where you are and continue moving forward.
Tom, I want to piggyback on that. That's 10,000 is a number to throw out and say, this is the barrier, right? This is the beginning. I reconnected with my college basketball coach recently, and he saw me talking about the rule of 10,000 or something. And so I just called it the rule of 10,000, right? You could hours. So in this case, I was talking about jump shots, and I said the rule of 10,000. So my coach sent me an email, a message, and he said, I didn't even know he was on social media. He sends me a message. He said, Dominick, I figured out your 10,000. He said, in my case, I think for a basketball player, it should be 10,000 shots a month. And this is what he thought but this number that you can get to, the 10,000, to show there probably is a metric, right? When we're measuring things, to at least realize, okay, yeah, if you have success before that, great, good for you. But if you don't, just start thinking, oh, well, I have to put in the work. You don't get to jump the line. So let's meet. Let's meet. Okay, it's been a good room so far today. We talked Clubhouse, publishing, podcasting, social media, video. We even talked about President Zelensky and the power of him using video today and how he's been able to shift the narrative. So we have Elle, fly fishing expert. We met her before. I'm interested. I want to fly fish now. Elle, do you have a question or would you like to share a tip today?
Hey, good morning, everyone. Well, first of all, I wanted to just say thank you. I got the little notification that you guys were doing this. I was here in a room with you guys last week. I thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, and I actually, Ben, I loved that back and forth. I just always remind myself comparison is the thief of joy, and I really and truly believe that. The moment you start to compare yourself, you're not enjoying, what it is you're doing or appreciating the fact that you're on a journey. I think it is absolutely imperative to be present in the moment and not look around. And I'm going to use myself as an example. Um, I I will be launching my podcast at the end of this week. I'm doing an interview tomorrow with another female angler for my podcast, but it's really easy to compare myself because I have not been fly fishing all of my life, but much of my life. And when you're a female in this world, it's very easy to get intimidated. Imposter syndrome is very real, and that is when I had to stop myself and say, I'm 52 years old. I keep fit so I can keep doing my thing, fly fishing. I don't just fly fish, all things fishing, but that's my real passion. Um, I do feel like it's okay, and that's why we're in this space, in this room. I looked forward to this room this morning to learn and to soak in all of these, you know, tidbits. I have a notepad out. I'm writing shit down. I am on this, and I absolutely love I think in this community in particular, people's willingness to share. I mean, nobody's charging for this. You'd be, you know, paying good money for the information and the free, um, flow of information, the ability to work with people you would never otherwise meet. I've met great people on this app and even a few that I've recently interviewed. And I just basically wanted to say thank you guys for holding this space. I'm here to learn, 100% here to learn. I'm a baby, baby, baby podcaster. So thank you again. Just looking forward to when you guys hold this space.
Love hearing that. That's what this is. That's what this is all about. Like that's why it's what I said in the post I put up where I shared producer Jemmy's words of wisdom yesterday. But it's why Dominick and I do this every week is to create a space where people can get what they need and get it in a way that is accessible and is supportive and welcoming. So we absolutely love hearing that sentiment from UL. Just lets us know that we are on track and doing what we've set out to do, and really really appreciate hearing that feedback. So thank you very much. Thanks for being here and thanks for sharing. And that line you dropped, comparison is the thief of joy. That for sure is getting clipped, and we're making a post about that one for sure. That one was gold. So thank you for sharing that.
I might change my title to that. Michael Lozer earlier in the room talked about going back and refreshing his content and change and I talked about going back into my YouTube channel and adding different titles and things like that. So we live stream this. Tom shares it with me. I just go in, I change the face because you can do that on YouTube. You'd let you change a different thumbnail picture, but I'm going to add that comparison is the thief of joy to the title of my version of it. So, Elle, thank you. We appreciate when you drop by. Now, Tom, this is the last person we're going to meet today. It's been a good room. We're thankful to everybody who stopped by. Really, I have 2 pages of notes for anybody looking at the live stream. You'll see my writing is not the best, but I do have 2 pages of notes. So Kamara, drop in, man. Look at this. I was looking at his bio. This is it. Follower of the way, tea lover, husband, view full profile. Okay. Husband, father, author, photographer, former lab tech, and he loves fishing too. Okay. Let's see what's going on. Kamara, ask a question, drop a tip, my friend.
Ready?
You're in, man. The floor is yours. Bring it home for us.
First of all, you shared some valuable information, and I followed you instantly when I heard you. You love fishing, and you have a podcast coming out because I'm going to be tuning in for sure. Because I'm in the process of trying to collaborate with a colleague of mine to step channel. My hands have been full. I have a newborn in my arms right now, and you can hear his sisters in the background as well. What I wanted to share today is, there's a challenge that we face as creators in the possibility of the success of what we're working on. Creator and keep creating, keep churning your work out, because sometimes you may be working on something months upon months upon months. Doesn't connect with the people.
Hey, Kamara, we're having some issues hearing you a little bit, but we appreciate you dropping in and giving us the tips of persistence. See, we'll try it again. Just drop that tip.
Okay.
Nope, no
How is it
good.
now?
Okay,
How's it now?
that's good. Come on, give it. You got 30 seconds. Make it happen. Take it home for
Excellent. I'm
us.
about to land this jet.
Drop it, man. Land it.
Oh, you sound great.
Awesome. So I just want to encourage everyone to just get your work done. Just create what you're creating and just push it out. Don't get caught up in whether it's going to sell or not, because sometimes the products that you spend 3 hours on a random Sunday morning and then you just spit it out, that might be the one that hits compared to the one that you keep obsessing over and you're trying to get it perfect. Don't try to be perfect. Just get it out. Keep doing what you're doing. Just keep creating. Thanks for having me.
Kamara, man, thank you. Tom, did he nail that or what? Fought through. This is a perfect example. He had a message to share. He's raising a child while he's doing it. So he's juggling multiple balls, but he brought it home and really, so thanks, man. And I appreciate the tips that you shared and thinking about how many times, how many videos have one view, how many posts have one heart, one like. But if you put out that post because you believed in it, maybe it's a year from now, somebody finds it. And that's the one that creates the ripple. That's the one that sparks. That's the one that gives somebody else those tips where they're able to change their own life, right? Because you knew your why. You were on message when you did it, man. So, Tom, I'm going to leave you like this today. For me, it's we all are on a journey, and you don't owe anybody an explanation on what you're out there doing, right? Go out, do your thing, live your life, share your story, and just be you. So go on, Tom. Take us home, my friend.
Thanks, Dom. Yeah, I mean, I 100% agree. I really love the sentiment behind what Kamara was sharing there, and I couldn't agree more with his message. I believe wholeheartedly that what drives what you put out into the world should be the one single question, and that one single question is: does what I'm creating, does what I'm giving provide value to the community that I seek to serve, right? That should be the question. And if the answer to that question is yes, put it up, share it, right? Don't hesitate to put those things out into the world. Content should not be used as a sales tool, right? It is from a business perspective, it is not the job of your content to sell for you. That's your job, right? Your job as the business is to sell, right? The content's job is to add value to your community, to help you build community around your brand, right? And to build trust with your audience, right? So use your content for what it's designed to do. Use your content to add value to the world, and you will ultimately find success through that. That's my golden nugget for this week, so to speak. That's my wrap up. Thank you so much, Kamara, for inspiring that message and for bringing that to the room today. Really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who came through today, everybody who was in the room, from actually Michael, who was in the room before I even got into the room today. He was in there with Dom. He was so ready and eager to go that he was in there before I got into the room. But really appreciate the community that we are building here. Appreciate all of you being a part of that and looking to create value for our world and for the community that we seek to serve, and provide a space where people can share their experiences to help others and ask questions to gain knowledge for themselves. That's what we're really here to do every week. So thank you to everybody for being a part of it. Dom, I will leave it to you to close out the room. I'll give you a countdown and everything if you like. So here we go. We're going to close it out. Thank you, everybody, one more time in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Adios.